Moonshine Glass Art, which is a small glass blowing studio in Enterprise, Oregon. Focused on making glass art for sale locally and then also doing classes with people. So I have 7 different items that people come in and make with me. It's probably half of my business. I started blowing glass about 5.5 years ago in Wallowa, Oregon with Russell Ford, who's in the background here. Russell started Moonshine Glass roughly 35 years ago up on the side of Mount Joseph on Moonshine Ditch, hence the name. I blew glass with Russell and Jake Kurtz for a little over 2 years, and then Russell was kind of slowing down and ready to hang up the torch, and I was ready to pick it up, so I purchased the equipment from Russell to get the business started here, kept the name Moonshine Glass, and moved it from Wallowa, where it was at that point in time, to Enterprise. So we're 624 River Street, right off the main highway in Enterprise, Oregon. If you want to get a hold of me to take a glass blowing class, you can call me at 541-398-1108. I'm going to blow a little glass for you guys today. I think I'll make an Easter egg, which is kind of a quintessential item for me because I hide 100 of these Easter eggs all over the county every year, and then probably a pint glass or a small vase. This style of glass blowing, called soft glass in today's world, is Venetian in its origin. And so, people have been melting glass for thousands of years, but in Venice, about 700 years ago, they developed a way to gather that molten glass on a steel blowpipe, which is essentially a stainless steel rod with a hole all the way through it, and blow bubbles out of this molten glass and apply color in a very fine way to make fine art. And they were the only people in the world doing that kind of glass art at the time. So there's a lot of Italian names in the glass shop, actually. A lot of our tools, like a Soffietta, a Punti, a Marver, all Italian names. They took it so seriously that, in fact, they used to hold their glass blowers captive, and they escaped the island of Murano, whereas it shortly moved to Murano from Venice in the early days of glass blowing. They would send assassins after these glass blowers because they didn't want their secrets getting out. The American version of glass blowing I do, they've been blowing glass in America for a couple hundred years, but the studio movement was started in the 70s, in large part due to a guy named Chihuly and his cronies over in Seattle and Tacoma, who broke away from some large glass blowing facilities and started their own studios for doing private work. And it's still a very rare art form. As you'll see here in a minute, we've got a melt furnace that has a crucible in it that holds a couple hundred pounds of molten glass that is on at 2100 degrees all year long for about 2.5 years in a row. I never turn that down or turn it off. It's and it's a big electric bill, and you have to rebuild it every 2.5 years, and I think that scares a lot of people off. There's definitely an overhead aspect with this business. There's only 4 suppliers of this glass color in the world. I'm gonna make an Easter egg, and I'll try and shout the instructions of what I'm doing to you. So I'm going to gather some molten glass onto a Punti. I mentioned before, it's a stainless steel rod, solid rod. I'll pick up some molten glass out of my melt furnace, maybe 2 gathers of that molten glass, and I'll apply some color. I'll try and walk over and show you what I'm doing as I can. So here's the melt furnace. I dip that rod down into that pool of glass as I'm turning and pick up a gather of that molten material. This table here is called a Marver. That's the Italian word for marble. So as you can imagine, back in the day they used to use marble slab. Now we use steel. In this case, stainless steel. It just works better, lasts longer. But you can see here I've taken that gather of that molten liquid glass and shaped it into what I call a finger. I'm going to get another gather of molten glass and apply 2 stripes of crushed up glass color called frit to either side. And And then I'm going to cut and slice this piece down the middle, hopefully trapping a little vortex air bubble in the center. So I've got two spots of crushed up colored glass here. I've got a bright red and a bright orange. Every time we gather, we pick up more material because we have more surface area. So as you can see, that's more than doubled in size. And I'll just take this gather right here and go straight to that color. So I don't know how well you can see that, but we have a gather of molten glass with two stripes of color on it. And now where the clear is, I'm going to cut it down the middle and twist as I pull these jacks out of it. This move that I'm going to do next is actually something that I discovered when I was making Easter eggs, just trying to make them all different, and I was just playing. And I was like, what if I do this? And it had this really cool effect where it trapped an air bubble in the center. So I'm going to grab that piece right in the middle across the clear and slice it with the jacks, and then pull those jacks off slowly and twist. Not only did that spiral that color up, but it trapped a little double helix bubble, as I call it, in the center that's kind of dancing around itself. I don't know how well you can see that on video. But see, it's still moving. So if I don't turn, that's going to slump. That's why glass blowers, we're always turning our hands like this. You almost never see us standing there just holding it. We're always turning even when it's cold. So I'll let this cool enough to get another gather encasing that color, and then I'll shape it into an egg. So now I've encased that color and that design. And I'll use a wooden tool that we call a block. It's made out of fruit wood, and it's got a circular shape cut into it that I can use to mold this glass. The reason this works well is this wood has been soaking in water, and it creates a layer of steam pushing off of that wood for that glass to float on. So notice that wood isn't just catching on fire, it's actually steaming. So that's the shape that I'd like for this egg. Now one of the last steps to do is to take these tools called jacks and cut a constriction line into the base of the egg right off the end of that steel rod. This will be the detachment location for this piece. It's good to look at glass like candy. So when candy's hot, you can move it and smash it and bend it, but when it gets cold, you can break it. So I'm going to let this cool enough until this jack line is the coldest, most brittle part of the piece. When that is cold enough to break, I will tap this bar here, and that will send a vibration down that steel rod, and when that vibration reaches this weakened, cooled jack line, it will snap right off. So you can see there, it's the finished Easter egg. I chose, of course, two colors that don't strike until the next day, so red and orange look kind of brown today. But if you look into there, you can see the helix bubble in the center. I have a bucket here that has kale wool, which is a spun ceramic fiber. And this is what a lot of our forges and my annealer is insulated with. And it's a high temp ceramic fiber that works as a good insulator, so it won't cool this glass off right away. And it also is heat resistant, so it won't catch on fire and stick to this. I don't really have a full production mode. I play every day, yeah. I kind of refuse to, I come into work and I kind of have an idea of what I'd like to achieve, but, if you really set this shop up for production and set up all those colors, you can make 60 eggs a day, but I don't do it that way. I make one egg and then I start over and make another egg totally different, and it's probably the slowest way you can do it, but it keeps me having fun. And when I'm having fun, I come back to work the next day. So you can see the colors changing. It's no longer glowing orange. The glass should be brittle enough now to snap off of here. So I'll use these jacks one more time to chill that constriction line. Again, making that the most brittle part of the piece. Like I said, a little tap on this punty will send a vibration down the steel and just snap it off like that.
What do you do with your odds and ends of little leave-in break-offs?
That's a good question. So the material that's left on the punty gets put into a wet bucket of water, and that water cracks that glass, and it just falls off, and then I save that glass for, you see there's an egg. Those colors, again, it's bright orange and bright red. Those are two colors where the pigments don't brighten up until it's fully cooled, so this egg is still around 1,000 degrees. I'll put it away in a 950 degree kiln here called an annealer, where at the end of the day, I will set that annealer go down for a 14-hour cool down. And then tomorrow we call it Christmas morning. When we come in and open that box, you get to see your stuff